From one cover-up to another. In Port Elizabeth this week, the Truth Commission's Amnesty Committee met to hear applications from 7 security policemen who were responsible for the 1985 deaths of a group of Eastern Cape leaders who have become known as the Cradock Four.
At the beginning of 1985, the Eastern Cape was on fire. Mass meetings, marches and boycotts had resulted in a partial state of emergency. Dozens were detained as the state tried to quell the growing defiance. 3 weeks before the declaration of a national state of emergency in July, the burned and mutilated bodies of Cradock High School principal Matthew GONIWE and 3 comrades were found in a deserted beach area outside of Port Elizabeth. Police said the circumstances surrounding their deaths were unclear.
In another incident of political violence, 2 United Democratic Front committee members have been stabbed and set alight after an attack on their car between Cradock and Port Elizabeth. A police spokesman has named the 2 murdered men as Mr. Sparrow Mkonto of Cradock and Mr. Fidelio MHLAULI of Oudtshoorn. The body of one of the men was found near the burnt-out car and the other was found some distance away. 2 other passengers in the car, both members of an affiliate organisation of the UDF, are still missing.
An inquest in 1989 found that the men had been killed by a person or persons unknown. The deaths of the Cradock Four, as they came to be known, remained shrouded in mystery until May 92, when the New Nation newspaper published a document said to be a military signal that called for the permanent removal of Matthew GONIWE from society. 2 more inquests simply added more questions to those that remained unanswered. This week, the man who carried out the killings, Johan Martin van Zyl, told the Amnesty Committee that he was carrying out the orders of his superior, Colonel Nicolaas Janse van Rensburg.
Colonel van Rensburg's words to me were that a drastic plan should be made very quickly with these particular people, and that I accepted to mean that they should be eliminated.
Saki van Zyl, a former member of Kufut and then a captain, said he was also given details on how the attack should be carried out.
Would you please tell us about that? Colonel van Rensburg proposed or gave order that the attack should appear as if it was a vigilante or a ZAPU attack. In other words, we should use sharp objects to eliminate these individuals, and that we should burn their bodies with petrol.
On the night of June 26, 1985, Matthew GONIWE, Ford CALATA, Stella MHLAULI and Sparrow Mkonto were on their way back to Cradock after attending a meeting in Port Elizabeth. Just before midnight, they were pulled off the road by 3 security policemen, Captain Saki van Zyl, Lieutenant Eric Taylor and Sergeant Gerardus Lotz.
We then got them out of the vehicle. We asked them to get out of the vehicle, and we handcuffed all 4 of them. How did you cuff them? By means of handcuffs, with their hands behind their backs. And we then loaded them into Lieutenant Taylor's vehicle and 2 of them into my vehicle, and Sergeant Lotz then drove their vehicle, and 1 activist also accompanied him.
In the early hours of June 27, 1985, the 3 security policemen drove their soon-to-be victims to this secluded spot just outside of Port Elizabeth. They were ordered out of the car. With their cuffs still on, they were executed one by one. Petrol was poured over their bodies and set alight.
Mr. van Zyl, 63 stab wounds were inflicted on the 4 people you murdered on the night of the 27th, 1985. Do you agree with the district surgeon's report with that?
I cannot disagree with that, Mr. Chairman.
Do you agree that the 63 stab wounds is evidence of barbaric conduct?
Mr. Chairman, in retrospect, absolutely. Fact is, though, that instruction was that this killing should look like a vigilante attack, and that a more humane way of doing it would not have had the same effect.
Does your answer mean that you were prepared to behave like a savage barbarian in order to mislead anyone that bothered to investigate the murders that you had committed?
In effect, yes, Mr. Chairman. I thought at the time that I could do it, and it turned out that I personally was not able to do it myself.
In his testimony, Saki van Zyl named 3 other men as those who actually carried out the murders. 2 of them were security policemen, Warrant Officer Glenn Mgoduka and Sergeant Amos Faku. The third was an Askari, Shepard Sakati. All 3 were killed in a car bomb explosion at Motherwell in 1989.
I told Faku that we had to stab him with a knife. Mr. Faku and the other 2 members then all took part in that. They all stabbed the corpse using knives. They then took petrol from my vehicle. It was in a petrol can. They poured it over the body and set it alight.
Saki van Zyl was not able to tell the committee in what order the Cradock Four had been killed, or why the bodies and the car were set alight in 4 different locations. But he did explain why he thought his actions had a purpose.
How did you think by killing these 4 gentlemen it would serve the interests of the Republic of South Africa?
Along with the instruction that I received, Mr. Chairman, I was convinced at the time that the elimination of these people would bring about stability in the area. It was not my decision, but I agreed with it.
Why did you do it?
Mr. Chairman, I've asked myself that question many times.
Well, let's hear your answer.
I think at that time I was just so motivated that I was prepared to do anything for this country, which is in retrospect was misplaced. But I have no other real explanation as that.
Would these killings have occurred without you being told or ordered to do so?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Your application indicates that you committed these crimes as a result of being ordered to do so by Colonel Snyman, Lieutenant Colonel van Rensburg and Major Du Plessis.
That's correct.
Is that the truth?
That is the truth, Mr. Chairman.
You were at liberty to refuse to do so, isn't it?
That's correct.
If you did not like to do it, why did you proceed with those orders?
Because I agreed that it was probably the only way that we saw at the time to try and stabilize this area.
Van Zyl was ordered by his immediate superior, Lieutenant General Nick van Rensburg, who in turn said he received his order from the commander of the Eastern Cape Security Branch, Colonel Harold Snyman.
Mr. Snyman told me that he had a private conversation with Minister Legrandsie, and that Legrandsie had told him that the situation in the Eastern Province needed attention and should be addressed. He wanted to know why these people weren't being prosecuted, what the problem was, and why the people responsible for the violence could not be brought to court. Mr. Snyman apparently answered that lawful actions simply had no effect any longer, and that witnesses were simply not obtainable as a result of the intimidation, and that the other options, such as detention, etc., were no longer effective because it simply led to an escalation in the violence. So we're talking here about restriction orders, detention without trial, bannings, etc. Yes. What else did he say? He told me that Minister Legrandsie told him that, well, then you should make some other drastic plan.
Harold Snyman is seriously ill. The Amnesty Committee's doctors are checking on his ability to testify. The Amnesty Committee also considered the role of the Eastern Cape Joint Management Council, a body which coordinated the enforcement of security in the area. The JMC or GBS consisted of military as well as security police members and had an information gathering unit called the GIS.
Your evidence was that Colonel Snyman reported that there was discussion at the JMC in which the Defence Force people put the security police under pressure and suggested that the security police were unable to stabilize the position. You recall that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, of this information that was furnished to the committee under oath, whether that clearly indicates that the persons that you refer to as Cradock Four, in inverted commas, the question was discussed at GBS meetings, and the information available to the GBS was made available to you when you decided to recommend the elimination of these persons.
I don't know about any information which the JMC gave to us, and that we reacted on information coming from the JMC.
The JMC had decided to act against the recommendation by the Education Department to reinstate Matthew GONIWE as principal of his high school in Cradock. This committee was the source of the so-called death signal signed by the JMC chairman, Brigadier Joffel van der Westhuizen. Last year, the TRC heard from the families of the Cradock Four. They told of their suffering and loss of their loved ones. They also had many questions to ask.
They chopped off his right hand. We buried him without his right hand. We don't know what they did with it.
Ms. MHLAULI, what do you think about the evidence that you've heard over the last 4 days?
My impression about the evidence that I've been listening to throughout these days is only about lies, more especially on the part of my husband. They're making fabricated lies right through, trying to paint him black as much as they can, according to them. And this gives me an impression that they're not really asking for pardon, more than just wanting to save their skins.
So they are the people who knows about what happened that evening. Why don't they come out truly and tell the whole truth? Because they are still lying, and they let their lawyers lead them what to say and what not to say. How can we believe such people? How can we reconcile with people who is not prepared to tell the truth?
And the way they killed my husband shows that they are still
telling lies. So I see no reason to forgive these people, because the only thing they are doing, they are lying.
I think that when we were coming now to see the murderers, I thought that we are going to hear what really happens. To my great disappointment, it is that no truth has come out again.